Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Hot Girls and Hockey podcast. My name is Sarah. If you're new to the show, this is the podcast where we talk about all things hockey, the what to knows, the who to knows, and everything in between. This episode is coming to you guys a day late. Apologies for that. I had a little bit of a breakdown for the last couple of days. Was not doing very well mentally. If you're one of the people who messaged me and checked in with me during that time, I love you and appreciate you so much. I'm doing a lot better now, as evidenced by the fact that I could actually sit down and film. But yeah, it was not a very fun past couple of days mentally. But you know what? Greener pastures are ahead. We're right at the very beginning of Stanley Cup playoffs, and I made my very first bracket. For my video watchers, I will put it right here for you to look at. Okay, hi. Sorry to all my Spotify listeners. It wouldn't let me put a photo in while I was editing, so I had to put a little screen grab of my bracket. But pretty much I have the Jets versus the Panthers as the final two teams, and I have the Panthers winning the second year in a row because I love Matthew Tkachuk. All right, thank you. Back to the episode. And I don't want to hear anything. I already got shit about it from my coworkers about having the Jets. No, who did I have beating the Oilers? I had LA beating the Oilers, and I don't want to hear it, okay? Oilers have so many fucking players out right now. It's Connor McDavid's one person. And I know he's not the only star on the team, but he is the team. He is the team. But he's only one man. It's kind of like putting everything on Connor Bedard or Macklin Celebrini. It's just not realistic. I'm getting way sidetracked, but yeah. Apologies for having this a day late. I just was not in a very good mental headspace to sit down and film, but I have a very nice, juicy, plump episode for you today. We're going to do another team deep dive, this time on the Boston Bruins. I kind of mentioned that this was going to be the episode at the end of last week's episode. This was so much research to do. If you don't know, the Boston Bruins are they're a team that's been around since the 20s, since 1924 to be exact. So they've been around for over 100 years. They are the third oldest active team in the NHL, and they are the oldest active team in the US. So yeah, a lot of research went into this topic today. Now, I want to give some precursors or whatever before I talk about, or I kind of get into the episode. One, they have gone through so many, obviously, lineup changes, so many coaches, so many GMs, owners, whatever. I am not going to talk about every single coach how I did with the San Jose Sharks, but they've only been around since 91, so it wasn't too many coaches to talk about. There's just so many with the Bruins that if I sat here and went through every single coach and every single coach's era, it would be a 5-part series just on the Boston Bruins. So I condensed it to really just the ones that, I thought were prominent. And if there's anyone that I missed, please let me know, either in the comments on the video version of this episode, or you can message me and let me know. I am Buttergirl, okay? Buttergirl who was doing this research while also losing her mind. Not literally, but kind of literally. And to go along with what I just said, I can get things wrong. I'm allowed to make mistakes, if you didn't know this. Like I said, I am but a girl. But I'm also human. I'm a human girl. And humans make mistakes. So if I'm missing anything, at all, or if there's anything that you thought I should have touched on more, let me know. And let us all know the lore that you want to bestow upon us that I did not do. All right? Are we good? Okay. Yeah, like I said, this is going to be a little bit of a longer episode. I'm going to try to keep it under 40 minutes, but we'll just see exactly what I end up doing and what ends up happening. So that being said, if you want to, go grab a snack while you're listening to this or watching this. I would grab a snack, but the one time that I did try eating while filming an episode, I think it was during my Alex Ovechkin episode. I spent so much time cutting out just bits of me chewing and chomping because I ate beef jerky. If you could tell if I was like holding something in that episode if you watched it. It was bad. And it took me so long to edit out every single like couple of seconds of me just chewing. I would chew away from the camera, but obviously in video version you're not going to want to watch me doing that unless you're a freak who likes that, which in that case, wrong website. There's an entirely different website that probably would, tickle your fancy a little bit more. But yeah, go grab a snack. I do have myself a fun little drink in my San Jose Sharks cup. I don't have any Bruins stuff, or else I would have worn something Bruins related. My dad has a Bruins hat and like sweatshirt and like a Happy Gilmore what's it called? A hockey sweater, like a Bruins one. But I don't know. I didn't have anything. So, it's not my team. So, we'll have to make do with just all my Sharks shit that's surrounding me every single episode. But yeah, I have my nondescript, non-branded black cherry seltzer in here. Let's all give a little cheers and then buckle up as we're going for a ride of 100 years of hockey history with the Boston Bruins. So cheers! So who is the Boston Bruins? Who are the Boston Bruins? It's a NHL hockey team based out of Boston, Massachusetts. They play in the Atlantic Division of the NHL, and they're a part of the Eastern Conference. There was a team that was established, like I said, back in 1924 as the first American team to join the NHL. Like I also said, they're the third oldest active team in the NHL. They're the oldest active team in the U.S., and they are part of what is known as the Original Six, which I'll get into that whole era later on. But they're one of those teams that was a part of that. If you remember from my history of the NHL episode, I briefly go over it just kind of towards the beginning of that episode. And I don't go into as much depth as I will in this one. But yeah, so some important people to shout out with the beginning of the team's history. This guy named Charles Adams. He was a Boston grocery store magnate, and he was the first team owner. There was like this one guy who was like, I think if I'm remembering correctly, he was like, hey, anybody want to buy a fresh team, NHL team, hockey team? And Charles Adams was like, I want one. So he bought one, and then so that's how he became the first team owner. And there's also another person that's important. His name is Art Ross. He was a former star hockey player. He was hired by Adams as the team's first GM. He was also the team's first head coach. He's the one who actually came up with the name Boston Bruins, because I guess Bruins is a nickname for brown bears in like mythology or folk tales. I don't know. I didn't fact check that. It could be true. It could be false. I'm just going off of what this Art Ross guy says. And another fun fact is that Adams wanted his team's colors to be the same color scheme as some of his grocery stores, which is brown with yellow trim. So that's cute and fun and fresh. He wanted like kind of you to correlate, like this hockey team with his stores that he owns. I can't remember the names of the stores. I couldn't be bothered to look that up, but anyway. Their first ever game that was played on December 1st, 1924 against the Montreal Maroons. And the Bruins won that game. They won 2-1. It wasn't a very good first season for them. They placed last in the league, but like with any new team, they go through growing pains. Second season was a little bit more promising. They didn't come in dead last, but they weren't leading the league in points as small as the league was at this time. But you know what? It was more promising than the first. We can only go up from here, guys. It was in their third season, though, which was the 1926 and 1927 season, that they were able to acquire some star players from the WHL, which is the Western Hockey League, after the collapse of that league. So they were able to get some players from there. This was how they ended up with their first star player. His name is Eddie Shore. He was a baller defenseman in the WHL, and he would go on to become one of the best players in NHL history. So Bruins got him and a couple of other star players as well, but this Eddie Short guy was just kind of like the main one that they were like, yes, we secured the bag, we got him. And this season would have them reach the Stanley Cup Finals for the first time, but then they lost to the Ottawa Senators, so womp womp. But it's okay, they made it to the finals, and if it's only their third season, like, good on them, my guys. And don't worry, this is not going to be the first time that we mentioned them making it to the Stanley Cup Finals or making it just to the Stanley Cup playoffs. They're a team that has made it a lot. They didn't make it this year, but we're not going to talk about that. All right. And another fun fact about this first time that they made it to the Stanley Cup Finals was that game, like the first game of the 7-game series. It was the first Stanley Cup Finals between exclusively NHL teams, which is a fun little fact about that one, even though they lost. But you know what? It's fine. And then I put fun fact / not so fun fact. During the winning game for Ottawa, a Bruins player named Billy, I'm going to fuck up your last name, Coutu, he attacked a referee during that game. And this got him a lifetime ban from the NHL. I believe it's the only one to this date of like a player doing something so bad during a game that they got banned for life from the NHL. Like, my guy, it's crazy. You made hockey history, but at what cost? And now those finals lead us up to the year 1929, which is when they won their very first Stanley Cup. So remember, they played their first official game in 1924, only 5 years into their whole career being a team. It only took them that long to win a Stanley Cup. So they won in 1929, and they won in a game against the New York Rangers, so slay. They did get to the finals again next season, so the 29-30 season, but they lost to the Montreal Canadiens. And so now, folks, I'd like to just give a preface to this. That sentence, I'm going to be saying a lot. You remember how in the Sharks episode, I talked about how I was getting so sick and tired of just writing, they made it to the second round and then they lost, or they made it to the third round and then they lost. Like, that's going to be me this episode, but with the Bruins and the Canadiens. Oh my god. The amount of times that this team has, like, lost to the Canadiens, like, and I'm sure any Bruins fan watching this right now is probably laughing their ass off. They're like, oh, yeah, honey, imagine how we feel. Imagine how we feel. I'm so sorry. But yeah, no, they lost that, Stanley Cup Finals to the Canadiens and all that jazz. They won their second Stanley Cup about 10 years later in 1939 against the Toronto Maple Leafs. So slay, they've got 2 under the belt. Love that for them. Wish my team had at least one, but I'm not salty at all. And during the 1930s, the Bruins would lead the league 5 times in points, but that would change in the following decade. Now, a couple of things happened in this following decade, which is the 1940s. First of all, in the 1939 to 1940 season, we unfortunately lost Eddie Shore. He didn't die, but the team lost him due to him having, I think he had like an injury or something. I'm not too sure. He just retired. But either way, we don't have Eddie Shore anymore, and he was one of our star players, like I mentioned. In the 1941, we won our third cup in a game against Detroit, but this would be our last one for 29 years, because then this little thing happened during this time. I don't know if you remember or know about this, it's this little teensy tiny event called World War II. World War II happened, and the Bruins roster was hit hard. So they had a lot of Canadian players, and these Canadian guys, they went off and they like enlisted in the Canadian Royal Air Force. And then also, if you don't remember, this was a time when a lot of American athletes and just young American men were getting drafted to the war. If you've ever seen the movie A League of Their Own, that touches the whole thing of like Major League Baseball players getting drafted and going over and fighting the war. So then they didn't create women's baseball, but that's when it became more popular, the Women's Baseball League, because these guys were overseas. Same thing with like the NHL, like a lot of their players, their American ones and also Canadian, whatever, they entered the war, and you can't play hockey if you're in the war. So it was not a really baller time for really any sports. But yeah, the Bruins roster was hit hard, mostly with those Canadian players that I mentioned earlier. So this would lead us into what I mentioned earlier, the original six era, which lasted from 1942 to 1967. So by 1942, the NHL had been reduced heavily down to only 6 teams in the league. These 6 being the Boston Bruins, the Chicago Blackhawks, the Detroit Red Wings, the Montreal Canadiens, the New York Rangers, and the Toronto Maple Leafs. So, 3 out of the 6 were American, and then the other 3 were Canadian teams, and they're the ones that were playing in the league, playing for the finals. It was, just a very small league at this time. The Bruins would not make the playoffs again until the 1945 to 1946 season, so only a couple of years after this original 6 era had commenced. And this was when the star players that, went off and fought that little war, they came back for the season. So that's the reason why they made the playoffs, because they got their guys back. They're like, thank God. Oh my gosh. But again, they would lose in the finals to the Canadians. Oh God! When I say Canadians, I mean Montreal Canadiens, not like Canadians, like people who live in Canada. I just don't want to say Montreal Canadiens every single time, so I'm gonna say Canadiens with an E, not Canadians with an A, or Canadians. I don't know. And so now it leads us up to, we're past the 40s. We're all done with that decade. Now we're up to 1951, which in this year, that guy, Charles Adams, the one who bought the team, he ended up selling the team to this guy named Walter A. Brown, who he was the owner of the Boston Celtics at the time. He sold it to him because his son was having like financial issues. So they were like, oh, fuck, we can't afford this team. We can't afford the Bruins anymore. Little Billy, I can't remember what his actual son's name was. I think it was like Weston or something. But I'm sorry, Billy, we don't get to own the Bruins anymore. It's either owning the Bruins or getting food on the table. You take your pick. I know mine. And then after this, I put in my notes literally every time they made it to the Cup finals during this decade, which is 1953, 57, and 58, they lost to the Montreal Canadiens. And I also put to remember, if you remember from my Stanley Cup episode, that the Montreal Canadiens have won the most Stanley Cups out of any of the NHL teams. I believe they've won it like 7 or 8 times. Don't quote me on that. Quote me from that episode, because she knows her facts way better than I do right now. I can't be bothered to go back and look at those notes, even though they're in the same notebook. But they slayed a little bit more, though, in 1958, because then the Bruins became the first team to have a black NHL player. His name was Willie O'Ree. He was the first actually like official, on the roster, played in an official NHL game, which is super baller. We love that. The Bruins would miss the playoffs from 1960 to 67. And then during this time, in that whole, not making the playoffs, Walter Brown, the guy who was the owner of the Celtics, who bought the team from Charles Adams, he ended up dying in 1964, which, I don't know if he was a good person or not, but like sad, I guess. But this led to Weston Adams, who was the son. Yeah, his name was Weston. I totally forgot that I put his name in the notes. I call him Billy in my little scenario. That was funny. Yeah, this list of Weston Adams, who was Charles Adams' son, are repurchasing the team. So yay, we're back to the original owners. And then in 1966, they acquired one of the best hockey players in history. He's up there along with like Wayne Gretzky and Alex Ovechkin, Sidney Crosby, yada yada yada. His name is Bobby Orr. He was another star defenseman and star player on the team. And now enter stage left. This era is known as the era of the Bruins having the big bad Bruins. The team became one of the league's top baller teams from the late 60s to the 80s due to so many star players on the team. Like I mentioned, we had Bobby Orr, but we also had players such as John McKenzie, Derek Sanderson, and Dallas Smith, just to name a few. They were known as the big bad Bruins. You did not want to go up against them. They will annihilate you. Even though they wouldn't win the Stanley Cup during those couple of years. But after a 29-year drought, they finally won the cup again in 1970 against the St. Louis Blues. And, they were still doing pretty good, than the following season. And then they were favored amongst, professionals and experts and stuff to be repeat cup champions. So when that previous season and when again this whatever season, but they were not repeat champions. They lost again to, I'm gonna let you take a wild guess which team they lost to. Did you guess the Canadians? Because it was the Canadians. Oh, you're so smart. That's what you got. You get a little cheers gold star for listening and just remembering the fact that I said I'm going to be saying that so many times. But then we redeemed ourselves in 1972 when we won the cup again against the New York Rangers. And now this leads us into the 1972 to 73 season. There's lots of changes that are happening. We got a new GM. Our former head coach, I put his last name as Sinden. I don't know if that's his first name and the last name actually. Thanks Sarah for the notes, but he was our former head coach and then now he's our new GM. We also had a lot of players leave to go to play in the World Hockey Association, or the WHA. And the 1970s also saw the Bruins losing Bobby Orr to an injury. I think this made him down for the count. He wouldn't play again in NHL. I could be wrong though. I'm just really trying to rack my brain from all the research I did. But I'm pretty sure this injury would leave him not playing professional hockey again. But again, in this decade, I saw them making the playoffs 9 times, and they won in 72, but they would not win another cup during this decade. It would just be that one in 1972 against the Rangers. And now we're leading into this era. It's from 1979 to the year 2000, which is considered the Ray Burke era. I think that's how you say his last name. It's spelled Bourque. I don't know if you're alive, man, but and you're probably not even listening, but if that is how you say your last name, awesome. If it's not, I'm sorry. Forgive me. He was a first round defenseman pick drafted in the 1979 to 1980 season, and he would become the face of the team for this era. And during this era, they made the playoffs every year in the 80s, but they would fail to win or get to the finals, except for 1988, but they did lose to the Edmonton Oilers. But then in the making it so dramatic. But then in 1987, the year of our Lord, I'm so sorry, we finally beat the Montreal Canadiens. Oh my God. We beat them, not in the finals, but we beat them in the playoffs. And then we ended up losing to the Oilers later on. But we beat the Montreal Canadiens. Up until this point for the playoffs, if we were up against them, we did not beat them, especially in the finals, as we know. Not beating them. But yay, slay. We didn't win the cup that year, but at least the Canadians didn't win either. And then we lost again to the Oilers in 1990. So, we got some wins and we got some losses, and we'll take what we can get at this point. In 1991 to 1992, we did make it to the playoffs, but we secured no wins. And then starting from the 1992 to 1993 season, the Boston Bruins would not win or get past the second round up until 2011. So not a very good couple of decades, but you know what? Like I said, at least I have a couple of cup wins. Can't say the same about my team. Also, one thing that I did want to bring up is that up until this point that they had been playing at this place called the Boston Garden. That's like whatever, where they were playing their games. And then starting in 1995, that's when they would go on to play in the arena that they're currently playing in. It used to be called the Fleet Center, and now it's called TD Garden. So that's, you know, something that happened that's not related to their season or their standings or playoffs or whatever. But it's a cute little fact. In 1997, they missed the playoffs for the first time in 30 years. And then 1998 to 99 season, they would make the playoffs, but they would not make the finals. So it was not a very good start for the new millennium. We had gone through 2 new coaches at this point, and we also had an incident in a game against the Canucks. Thanks for putting so much detail in there, Sarah, for what happened. I think there might have just been like, you know, a slashing incident or something that made, you know, the team look bad. But yeah, not a good start for the new millennium. The year 2000 was not a very good leap into, you know, greater pastures. But, you know, in the 01 to 04 seasons, like all those seasons, they would win division titles and they make the playoffs. But again, no finals. They wouldn't make it to the finals. I'm so sorry, guys. My notes make me giggle so much. The next one is literally just saying they've literally had so many coaches. OMG. I think this is the part of the research when I was going through and doing it that I was like, how many coaches have they had? And then there's a whole Wikipedia page that just lists all the coaches, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many coaches. Oh gosh, past Sarah makes present / future Sarah giggle, and I need that. And like I mentioned before, the 04 to 05 season was the lockout season. If you don't know what that was, go watch my episode about Alex Ovechkin, because I kind of go into what that season was. So no hockey that season. Duh. There, you know, after that, more playoffs, no finals, blah, blah, blah. Quite literally what I wrote in my notes. More playoffs, no finals, blah, blah, blah. And then I put, yay, finally, in 2011, like I mentioned before, they finally won their next cup against the Vancouver Canucks, which was slay. And that was the last time that they've won the cup so far. In 2013 and 2014 season, they did win the President's Trophy, which slay, love that. And now we're up to the current era, this 2015 to 2025, this present day. It's called the Don Sweeney era. Don Sweeney, he was a former Bruins player, and he's now the team's new GM and the current GM for the team. And so, like I've mentioned, you know, up until now, it's kind of a lot of the same, you know, making playoffs, except for this year. Sorry. Which is the first time not making it since 2016. You know, current season, they went through a really big change. If you are not keeping up with current, you know, standings of different teams and stuff, we still have Pasta, David Pastrnak. I really hope I'm saying his last name right, but I love Pasta. He's so cute. But we still have him. He's still, you know, very beautiful player. I got to see him when I watched the Sharks play against them. It would have technically be the Bruins playing against the Sharks because it was at SAP Center. I think, yeah. Either way, I went and saw both teams with my dad because his team is the Bruins, like I mentioned. My team's the Sharks, and we won, so yay. But it was, like, really nice getting to see him play. But they also lost, if you didn't know this, their captain, Brad Marchand. He got traded to the Florida Panthers, so he is now a Panther. Even though we all thought he was going to retire a Bruin, which was really sad. He's a rat. There's no doubt about that. Like, the Bennett, Tkachuk, Marchand line for the playoffs is going to be literally the most nastiest line in the NHL. Like, don't get me wrong, I love my Pookie, Matthew Tkachuk. I'm so excited. I can't wait. Hopefully he can play in the playoffs. He's been not playing since Four Nations because of his groin injury, and I miss him. I miss you, Matthew. Come home. The kids miss you. I don't even remember what I was going with this sentence. I think about Matthew Tkachuk and my brain just turns into like jello. Just all I can think of is like that one TikTok audio where it's like blah 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 backstory whatever. Like that's all I think about. Oh god, I'm going off the fucking rocker. Yeah, we lost the team captain, so right now we're team captainless. And our current coach is this guy named Joe Sacco. That's a funny last name. And yeah, I don't know where the team is headed at this moment or what the future has for them. You know, I mean, they made playoffs last year, but like I mentioned, like 4 times so far. They haven't made them this year, so you won't be able to watch them during the playoffs for the next couple of months, but I'm sure they're going to bounce back. They're a resilient team. They've been a team for over 100 years, like I mentioned, like insane. But yeah, that, for all my audio listeners, that was me slamming my notebook shut. That is, in a nutshell, the Boston Bruins. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I put a lot of research and thoughts into it. I'm not too sure what I'm going to do for next week's episode. It will be on time. I can guarantee you that. It will be next Tuesday, which would be, I don't know, the 29th, I think, of March. I think if anyone wants me to, I'll go into my thought process behind my Stanley Cup bracket. I did have somebody tell me I should talk about this year's playoffs and kind of what I expect from it. So I might do that. Might do something about the next draft. I don't know, guys. Message me and let me know what you want me to talk about, because I probably will just do like both of those things. If anything, I'll just do like, you know, half the episode about playoffs, the other half about who I think is going to be like the first overall pick. This guy named, I can't remember his first name, his last name is McKenna, but I'm pretty sure he's going to be the first one. He had a beautiful, smooth, like butter pass and goal at this one game. It was like insane. It was so insane to the point that my boyfriend, who does not post about hockey unless I like tag him and stuff, he posted it without even me sending it to him on his story. Like, that's how good this kid is. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Like I said, hope you enjoyed this episode. Again, apologies that it was a little bit late, but I am in a way better headspace now than I was a couple days ago. And hopefully things are going to be on the up and up. We will see. And yeah, I love and appreciate everyone so much for sticking with me. This is the 10th episode. I can't believe I've had 10 episodes of this podcast. It's insane. I literally remember sitting down and filming my very first episode and just how nerve-wracking that was, talking to like a camera by myself. But I appreciate everyone that has listened to every episode or watched it on YouTube. It means more to me than you could ever imagine. I'm not too preoccupied with numbers with this show. If it takes off, it takes off. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I just very much enjoy researching and filming and interacting with people about hockey and just hockey related things. So yeah. All right, before I get too sappy and stuff, I'm going to jump off. But thank you so much for watching. If you're watching this on YouTube, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. It helps a ton. And then if you're listening to this on Spotify, please make sure to give the show a good rating. And I will, like always, see you in the next one. Bye!